everyone, welcome to the Castle Grounds Apiary. Today we are going to go over how to build a very strong steel and stone beehive stand. Now this is not the cheapest stand you can build. It's not the easiest stand you can build. This type of stand is going to be more for somebody who wants a permanent, very strong, and aesthetically pleasing stand for their beehives. This also incorporates a moat at each leg to keep the ants and such out. It's concreted into the ground, so it's not permanent, but it's pretty darn close. And it's all welded together. Now, this is one I built a few weeks ago. I'm about to put another one right beside it because we just adopted 6 new hives that we weren't expecting. So I've got to make some more room for the incoming nukes and the new hives that we're adopting. So I'm going to put another one right next to it. I'm going to do the same thing, except I know that metalwork, masonry, welding can be a little bit intimidating. So I'm going to build one half of it the way I did this, all welded up, and then the other half I'm going to do in a way that's all bolted on. So if you don't want to get into the welding scene, if you don't want to get started welding, you don't want to spend the money on that equipment, I'm going to show you a way you can do it with bolts and a drill. So this should work well for everybody. I will say if you have any interest in welding, as we go, I'll kind of talk about what you can do to get into it fairly cheaply, because you don't have to spend a ton of money to do welding. The welder I used for this was like a $150 Amazon welder, and it works just as good as the 220 AC Lincoln buzz box that I have in my garage at home. So you can get the job done without spending a lot of money. I'll probably break this into a few parts. I'll start off with the groundwork and the preparation. That'll probably be part 1. Part 2 will probably be the metal work, the fab work, the bolt up, weld up side, and then the last step will probably be the more decorative side, where we stick some stones on there and kind of round out the ant moat situation. And we're gonna do it in the rain, I guess. So let's start digging. To give you a closer look at what we're dealing with, we have single cell cinder blocks stacked. I think we have 4 high, 2 underground, 2 above ground, concreted in. 3-inch square tube comes up to a perpendicular support 3-inch square tube, same on both sides. And then we have this 3-inch C-purlin, C-channel welded on top. And I think this one, you can fit 6 hives on this snugly. 4 or 5 would fit with a little more room. But as we're running out of space, we may end up putting 6 on this, we'll see. So let's come up on the moat. So you can see how the moat's gonna work. We put the 3-inch squared tube right in the center of that right in the center of that cinder block. And we've got about 1 inch all the way around that we'll be able to fill with some sort of oil. And that will keep the bugs out. So that's what it's going to look like. So the first thing we need to do is mark our holes. Now, since I'm going to have a matching stand to this one, I'm going to use it as a reference. If you're building a single hive by itself, you pretty much just want to square it up to whatever it's around. Your house, your fence, your shed, whatever. See, I kind of built this one so that it would run parallel to our trail here, so that we can pull up and load honey supers or equipment or whatever. So now I just want to make sure that the one next to it is going to be square as well. So the way we do this is I've got a string tied to that far side, and I'll just move this back and forth until it touches its other leg. And when it does, and it's going to be hard for you to see on the video, in person you can clearly see when the string just becomes tangent with both posts, and that's where I will stake the string. Then I'll take my measurements, however far apart you want the posts, I'm going to do 6 foot spacing here. And I'm going to leave about, I don't know, maybe 4 feet between the 2 hive sections or stands sections. And I'll show you how that looks now. All right, sorry if you can hear that bulldozer next door. That guy's building a slip and slide or something. All right, so you can see here we've got the string pulled tight. It's just touching the faces of the 2 posts on the hive that's going to be just adjacent to this one. Now, you can see here I've used these cinder blocks to create a little bit of like a batter board type thing. It's just pulling the string tight. It's going to let us make our marks. Now, I've already pre-measured this. So you want to mark just below the string. And you want to keep in mind that the string is going to mark the face, the front of the post. So you want to come off of the string, at least whatever direction you are or orientation you are coming from that stand. Now, like I said, if you're not matching another stand, you can just make whatever mark you want. But what the string will do is it will make sure that both your posts are properly squared and that they're facing the same way. Because one of the problems that you run into when dealing with perfectly square metal posts like these is if you don't have them rotated perfectly, you'll have problems when it comes to the next step. So the string is really great for making sure that's lined up correctly, because you'll be able to tell when the square tube is turned just right because it will perfectly lay flat against this string. So this string is going to stay in place for the next few steps. It's going to stay there while we dig the holes, and it's going to stay there whenever we concrete the cinder blocks in, and then for whenever we drop the square tube in the center. So they're good to go there. Just be careful. These strings can move every few minutes, especially when you're digging. Check and make sure that your string is still where it needs to be on the other ones if you're using something else as your guide. Well, if you've ever built a fence before, this is all going to seem very familiar to you. This first step is exactly how you start out building a fence. And you get to use one of these fun little toys as well. Now, I do have a 3-point auger for my tractor that I could pull these out with real easy, but honestly, it's soft ground. We're not going super deep, and about 18 inches or 16 inches or so. And, you know, it's not that hard. Even though I'm probably gonna hit some roots, it's not the end of the world. So I always make the hole a little bit bigger than I need to. It's a lot easier to give yourself room to move. You can always add more concrete. If you make a small hole and you put it in the wrong spot, you're gonna end up digging it out anyway. So go a little bigger than you need to. What did I hit already? Oh yeah, make sure you call and have your lines located before you do any digging. Now, I skipped past the digging part. If you've never, learned how to use one of these already, consider yourself fortunate. If you know how to use one already, you don't need to watch me do that. So dig your hole, figure out how deep you want to go. I'm going to go 16 inches, which is just 2 of these cinder blocks, one on top of the other. You might want to check with what your frost zone is, or how deep you need to be to get below the frost line. Here, for code, it's like 18 inches. I'm going to go 16 inches because that's deep enough for what we're doing. So if you're doing this in town, you might want to just make sure you're following any local codes or guidelines. Now, you also want to make sure you don't have any organic matter getting in your hole, like these leaves. I've been careful not to let those fall in. Like that. Because when they decompose, it will create voids and then will result in settling. Now, this is just about where I want it. I'm going to tamp that down, the loose stuff down, and then I'll have almost 2 full blocks in. So you can see I've got about another inch to go, but it's all loose. One other thing to be mindful of, since we're going to have the top 2 cinder blocks above grade, like over here, we also need to make sure that our cinder blocks are square with this line. Now, it's not going to be as easy to do being that that one is covered in stones and there's not a flat surface, and that the posts are recessed back. So we're really just gonna eyeball this part of it. Once I get this one set and I start on this one, I'll make sure that that one matches this one, since I'll have a nice flat surface to pull a string off of. So if you're doing it like this, you can actually use the cinder block as a tamper to get it close to where you want it. That's pretty close. It's a little unlevel though, so I'm going to use my hand and move some of this loose stuff and shift it around a little bit and pack it back down. Okay. So once you get it deep enough, you need to make sure that it's level. And a little magnetic torpedo level like this costs just a couple dollars, and it's very handy. So I am nowhere near level. I need to bring the back down, and I need to bring my right side down. So I'll just kind of waller that out with my hand, put it back in there. I've got the height I want. We'll make sure it's level, and then we'll make sure it's square. So lots of easy steps. There's a lot of steps, but none of them are, you know, very labor intensive or complicated. All right, so one trick you can try when trying to get your bases level in a hole is go down a little bit deeper than you need, throw in some soft material, loose material, you know, just kind of the dirt you've been digging. Make a little 1/2 inch bed, and then put that block down there and kind of just shimmy it back and forth until you see which direction it needs to go. And then you can kind of just slowly but surely, so let's look at this. It looks like, no, it's hard to see. Well, we're pretty close, but I actually need that corner to go down a little bit. So you can just tap it down because it's loose, let it settle. Can you see that? So that's close enough. Same this direction. That's good. Now, lastly, see that? We're not squaring the hole. So we need to rotate until we are. So I need 2 hands for this, so I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, so I got it rotated. And you see that's a little closer. It looks like I need to turn it just a tad bit counterclockwise. So I'll do that now. Just making small adjustments. So, you know, this isn't the most construction grade way to do this, but it's kind of hard to show you guys what to look for when filming. And this is close enough, you know. If you're building a house, don't eyeball it. But for what we're doing, it'll be fine. So now the last step before we mix concrete is to make sure that our post is going to touch that line and be plumb. So I'm gonna get a piece of scrap metal and we're gonna check that next. All right, now what you're seeing here is a simulation. Excuse my swollen fat hand. I got stung a couple times and I'm all swelled up. But you wanna put the post in and make it plumb, just hold it and get it where you want inside the cinder block. And if you're in the cinder block where you wanna be and you're plumb, and you're just barely touching that string, you're on the money. However, what I'm seeing here is I've got the right gap around the post with the cinder block for the oil moat, and I got plumb when I stand still, but I'm not quite touching the string. I need to slide the cinder block up, whatever that gap distance is. That's about 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna slide that block up 1/2 inch, recheck for level, put the post back in, recheck for plumb, check for string touchage, and we'll be done. Well, we'll be moving on to the next step. All right, Cletus, go ahead and tap her down. This is my squire. He asked me to call him Helpy McHelperson. He loves it when I call him that. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're using the second line to make sure the two columns are level with each other. Isn't that right, son?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you do. Now usually you use a string level, which I left in the building, but a regular level will give you the same idea. So we need to come down a little bit more. Okay, right where it touches the block. We might be pretty close actually. Nope, need to come down a little bit more. No wait, not the string, the block. So we're gonna dig out about another inch, put the blocks back in, bring the string back down, and we'll see if they are level with each other. All right, Helpy McHelperson's gonna mix up the concrete now that we have both stacks of cinder blocks square with the adjacent hive. I'm trying to block the wind, sorry. And they are level with each other. So the first string line matches the face, lines them up nice and neat. The second string line running back there, it makes sure that this stack and that stack's level. Now we have these two blocks turned on its side so that concrete doesn't go in the hole yet. We're going to put concrete on the outside, then come back later with the post, put the post in, and then re-concrete around. So this is day one of concrete. We'll come back on Saturday for day two. This is a little better look at the first string.
Is that good, or should I add more?
Add a little bit more, and then mix it with the shovel, and then you could always add more if you need it. And then this string is the one that checks the level that way. These look a little bit out of square, this one, but that's because these blocks aren't lined up just right. They're just covering the hole. Nothing fancy needed here, guys. Just one of these cheap trays you get from the concrete section of Home Depot, a shovel, and some jugs of water. I've already got that side filled up. I'm about 2 inches from the grade of the dirt. I'm gonna backfill, that way I don't have to displace so much dirt. We'll create a little mound coming working up to it. Then the other two blocks will go right up above it. We'll slap stone on. That's it. So now I'm gonna fill up this hole with concrete. I just realized you might not be able to see my head. You're not missing much. You can follow the directions on the bag, and you can just mix it until the dry is wet. And that's about it. But not too wet. Make it like oatmeal, not cereal.
Taco Bell Sunday! Woo woo!
They don't have Sundays at Taco Bell.
Sure they do.
That's
They don't
Brahms.
have Chick-fil-A on Sunday.
No, they don't have Sundays at Taco Bell.
What is that supposed to be?
All right, so the holes are dug, the blocks are in, we have some concrete around, we know that our bases are square with each other, we know that they are level as well, and so next is the posts, the metal posts that come out from the center of the cinder blocks. And once we do that, we'll fill in the void between the posts and the cinder blocks with concrete, and that will help make the moat, ant defense moat. So you might be asking yourselves, where do I get 3-inch square tube? Because that's what we're gonna use. We're gonna use 11 gauge 3-inch square tube. Can you get it at Lowe's? Can you get it at Home Depot? The answer is most likely not. I've never seen it there. And even if they had it, I would recommend against it, because you pay a premium for metal supply stuff at the big box stores just because they're charging you for the convenience. So never buy metal there unless you're in a bind, or if it's late or it's on a weekend. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to Google metal suppliers and metal supermarkets. There's a good, they're the biggest. That's honestly probably what you're going to find as well. So we're going to call them real quick, and we're going to put in a little order. Now, I'm not going to order the sea purlins here because I've got a mountain of sea purlin and I don't have any more 3-inch square tube. But if you're curious curious, if you're curious even, it is 1.5 inch by 4 inch seed purlin. So good stuff. So I'm gonna give them a call. I'm gonna order it to size. That way there's no cutting that you need to do.
This call may be recorded for quality and training purposes.
Okay, good.
Thank you for calling Metal Supermarkets. This is Jared. How can I help you?
Hey Jared, I need to order a couple small sections of 3 inch square tube. Can you help me out?
Yes, sir. What's the name on this, sir?
Justin Wheeler.
All right. Company name? Or just under here?
Just under mine. It's just a personal project.
There you are, Mr. Wheeler. All righty. Steel, aluminum?
I need steel, 3 inch square tube, 11 gauge.
3-inch square tube, 3 by 3 by 11 gauge.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And can you guys cut that to a few custom lengths for me? They're short. I just don't have a
Absolutely.
saw on me.
Yes, sir.
I need 2 of them 36 inches and 2 of them 18 inches, and that's it.
All right, Mr. Wheeler, so I have steel square tube, 3 by 3 by 11 gauge, 236, 218.
That's it. That's easy, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Alrighty, boss, I got you at, after tax, $91.70.
All right, that sounds good. When is a good time for me to pick that up? Tomorrow, maybe?
Sorry.
Would it be ready by tomorrow?
I got ready here in 15 minutes.
Okay. I'm on the outside of town, so I don't know if I'm gonna be by there today. Could you get it ready and I maybe just swing by sometime in the morning?
Yep. I'll have it cut this evening, so that way if you come and pick it up, it'll be there.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you, buddy.
Alright, thanks, Justin.
All right, bye. So it's not cheap. Anytime you order small quantities of steel, especially cut to certain sizes, you're going to pay a lot for it. And that's just a part of it. Like I said, this isn't a cheap stand or an easy stand. It's a heavy-duty, good-looking, long-lasting stand. So, like you said, $90 for the square tube on this project, and it's you're paying per cut essentially. So, granted, if you have the means to cut it, get a 20-foot stick of it. 20-foot stick of it's less than $90, and I'm getting less material, but I'm paying for the cut. This is for video purposes only. I've got 2 chop saws, I've got angle grinders, so I could cut this, but I want to show you guys, if you want to build this stand and you don't want to buy a chop saw, an angle grinder, a plasma cutter, whatever, you can do it without. And like I said, we're also not going to need to weld it. This is going to be a bolt-up kit that anybody can do. So tomorrow morning we'll go pick that up, and then we'll concrete it in, and then in part 2 of this video we'll do the bolt-up, weld-up side of things. So stay tuned. All right, so we're about to get started again. Here's what we're left with. 2 8-inch blocks held together from the outside of the concrete. We're going to pull that second string out because that just got us level with each other. And we're going to leave this string because that keeps us square with the other stand and will help us square up the post we're about to put in. And once we get the post square, we'll go ahead and put a little bit of concrete in, just enough to hold it in place. Then we'll slide the 3rd block over the top, fill the concrete up the rest of the way, and that's it. Bingo bango. So here are the 36-inch posts that we got from the metal supplier. Now, I've got the first one just loosely resting in place, and you may be asking yourself, why does this appear so much shorter than the other one? And that's for a couple reasons. One, I built the other one too tall, to be honest. I forgot to compensate for the added height whenever we add the supports that go horizontal, and so that's 4.5 inches above what I was intending. So that's already 4 or 5 inches too tall. But we're also trying to get our kids involved this year with beekeeping, and even our regular sized hives, taking the lid off. The kids aren't tall enough to actually look in and look inside the honey super, probably not even the brood box. So I'm gonna make this one short. That way there's at least one stand that they can really get involved in and dive deep into. So this one's gonna be a little shorter, but it's gonna be pretty much identical as that one, just scaled down a bit. Now if you took your time and did the first step right, getting the blocks square and level with each other and keeping your string in place, this part, everything else is really easy from here. So that's why taking your time in the beginning is very important. You can see here, I'm centered in, well, you can't, can you? No, you probably still can't. I am centered in the block, which we need that for our moat later on. Centered in the block, and I'll work on plumbing it up as I get the concrete in. But being centered in the block is the key to this step. Same over here, this looks really good. And I'm square. So getting it square before you put concrete in the hole is very important, because you may not realize it, but if you start putting concrete in before you're square, you can have a really hard time rotating these about face. And the only real way to do that is to pull it out and stick it back in. But at that point, now you've got concrete underneath, you can't get down below, and then your pre-cut pieces of metal are no longer level with each other, which is not a big deal, but then you'll have to go back and cut after the fact, which defeats the purpose of having it pre-cut from the metal supplier. So I like the way these look. I'm gonna get my concrete mixed, get my level out, and we'll get these trued up. All right, when getting yourself plumb, you need to keep in mind that there's actually 3 controls we're trying to adhere to. We want it to be plumb as it touches the string and is square. So I'm plumb right here, and I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the string. So I'm gonna bring the whole post forward a bit. You want it to be plumb right as it touches the string, and that is perfect. And that direction is the most important. Once you get that, then this direction is easy to achieve. But if you notice, if you get to plumb and you start getting too close to one side, just pick up the bottom and slide it over. That looks really good. And then readjust for square, like that. Really, you just want to be straight across with your other posts, plumb up and down, and then perfectly centered in the block, because we don't have a lot of wiggle room for how much of a moat we're going to have. If you went with 2-inch tubing, you'd have a much bigger moat, but my thought is a 1-inch moat has got to be as effective as a 4-inch moat. So I think this will be good enough, and since it's going to be pretty close underneath the stand, I don't foresee sticks or limbs or leaves getting in it. So anyway, so this one's ready. Got to move this one over quite a bit. I just roughly stabbed these in, so don't expect it to be perfect right out of the gate. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So now I know the bottoms are resting where I want them. I'm gonna scoop in a little bit of concrete, check for plumb one more time, then let that set up a bit. Should have brought my trowel. All right, we'll do a couple more scoops, try to get up about 8 inches or so, and we'll jump to the other side. This is where a runnier consistency would be nice, but just keep in mind, if you dilute it too much with water, you're going to be sacrificing a little bit of strength overall as it cures. All right, so it's already starting to get pretty tight in this hole, so this is where you want to make your final adjustment, because it's not going to move much longer. That looks good. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now, I don't know if it's going to be perfect across the top. It is. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and just use my hands to kind of pack some of that in there. We'll let that set up. And this one's ready to go. Now, I'm not going to let any concrete dry around the rim of my top block, because I'm going to be taking that block and setting it over, so I need a nice, smooth, clean surface for that to sit on. However, if you're not going to come up above the ground level with the block, we're going to do so for the moat, and so we can decorate it a little bit. You can fill this up from here, just top this off and you're done. But we're going to put a little extra flair on it. Okay, we have both posts started on the concrete and the blocks. We are perfectly plumb, we are perfectly square. At this point, the posts aren't going to move anymore. We got them where we like them. So we're going to take the string down, or move it out of the way anyway, because we don't need that anymore. And now, with the top of your blocks clean of wet concrete, bring this down. Careful, don't bump your post, because it'll still move a little bit if you hit it too hard. There we go. And here we go. Okay. I'm gonna use the rest of that 60-pound bag to fill these up. And I'm gonna come about an inch from the top. I'm gonna try to use my hand to kind of mold it and compact it real tight, because that's gonna be what holds our oil. And then we're done. Doesn't take much, which is the benefit of the 3-inch. It's strong and doesn't need as much concrete. Granted, you probably won't use much more concrete if you use a 2-inch pipe either, so not a big deal one way or another. But you can see how fast it comes together if you take the time to get your holes and your initial blocks put in place. So take an hour, do it right, and then the results will be much, much easier, quicker, and ultimately better. Yeah, this is looking good. Leather gloves aren't good for this. In fact, it's probably the worst thing you can use leather gloves for. All right, I'm full, over full maybe, so I'm gonna take a little bit of that out. Take it out while it's wet, a lot easier than when it's dry. That is a thing of beauty. One last plumb check. Oh, baby. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, I wanted to bring you in close so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. Without a cameraman, it's hard for me to kind of get in close and do this stuff hands-on. there's the base for our moat. Now we'll bring the stonework up the sides and come up a little bit and maybe put a little ridge of mortar along the top to kind of, one, create distance between the metal and the edge of the moat, and also give it a little more depth. So I've got lots of that mortar laying around, and that's easy to work with and shape. So we'll do that. We should end up having about an inch and a half moat all the way around, also about an inch and a half deep. You hear the bees buzzing. And here you can see that we are pretty well lined up. What do you think about that? All you need is a string. All right, so this pretty much concludes part one of the affordable yet extremely strong and durable, not to mention attractive, beehive stand. To this point, we have not touched a power tool. We used a post hole digger, a shovel, a level, and that's pretty much it. I toted water out here in gallon jugs. I don't have any electricity ran out here, so super simple stuff. String, no, can't forget the string. This is the key to building level, strong, good-looking stuff, stands. Using the string and using the level, the cheapest things out here. So next week we'll come back and I will do the metal work, which will be the horizontal braces and supports that run perpendicular to each other. We will weld up this side, we will bolt up that side. And then the third video will be kind of the finishing touches, putting the stone veneer on, the oil, the paint, and I've got one other small neat little touch we're going to add to that third video. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, let us know. Thanks.